I'm John Smith, and welcome back to Kingdom Real.
Hi, Dad. How are you today?
Great, sweetheart. How are you?
Excellent. So, over the past couple of episodes, we know a little bit of your story, right? Tonight, we're going to get a little bit deeper into a couple aspects of your life as a minister and things that you had gone through. What makes you uniquely qualified to help coach hurting pastors and other ministry leaders?
To put it simply and briefly, as a pastor and his family, by God's grace, we navigated almost everything incredibly wonderful that we could go through, and almost everything incredibly painful, damaging, and destruction. We went through both sides of it.
Okay. So tonight we're going to go a little bit more into the second part of that. Okay. So we touched on the hurt that you had experienced at New Life in New York earlier in a couple of the podcasts. Sure. So let's revisit that time in your life. Can you give us a brief overview of some of the events that happened there? And again, we're kind of leaning towards the more hurtful things.
Okay. Well, you want the most hurtful thing?
I do.
Okay. The most hurtful actually started on April 29th. I only remember that is because I got this letter from somebody I thought was a close friend for almost 20 years. On your mother's birthday. And as I was sitting in my office, opened this letter, read it. It was like 3 pages typed, I think even single space. And it started out by saying, I'm writing this letter on behalf of a whole group of people. And it continued, and there wasn't one positive statement about me anywhere in that letter that I remember. It was just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next, of things that I didn't do right, I didn't do enough of, and all these things that everybody's just upset and basically, kind of wished I wasn't their pastor. Mm-hmm. So as I read that, I was shocked, I was surprised, I didn't see any of that coming, and my first inclination is what I did. I picked up the phone, I called up the person, because, fortunately the person signed their name, and that was good. Sometimes people write like letters like that and then make it anonymous, which is really a coward's way of doing things. This person at least had the courage to sign their name. So I called him up and I said, man, I had no idea. Why don't you get that group of people together? I'll come over and we'll meet with them and we'll go through all your concerns. And that was kind of the end of it that day. And then Saturday morning, I started getting phone calls from elders and deacons at the church. And they were going, what are we going to do with this letter? I'm going, what are you talking about? What I didn't know is this person sent that same letter to 8 elders, 8 deacons, and denominational officials. It was basically, what do I have to do to get rid of me as the pastor? And but it was fascinating because they all said, every issue that's in this letter are decisions we made as the board. This is our battle, not yours. The person she's really mad at is us, not you. So whatever you do, don't have that meeting. We're going to have a meeting Sunday night after church to discuss what to do. And so I says, well, okay. So I waited.
So I remember you had kind of described in an early episode kind of where it went from there, that you had the meeting and how that all went. You talked about how that had affected Mom immediately.
Yes.
And you little bit later on, and I really feel like after I listened to you share that you were in like pastor mode, So at that meeting, you said you even stayed later. And so you were like so deep into, I'm the pastor, I need to make sure everybody's okay. I need to, I'm going to listen to them. And because that's what you do as a pastor. Mm-hmm. So then you said it hit you a little bit later on. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of what that process looked like, was there a moment that it hit you, or was it kind of gradual as you were replaying things in your head?
It was actually gradual, and as I've tried to understand what actually happened there, you're exactly right. I was in pastor mode. But the other part of it actually goes back to my childhood. I was raised in a wonderful Christian home by incredible parents. But no matter how great your family is or how close to Christ they are, every family has some stuff that they probably didn't do exactly right.
Sure.
And in my family, anger was not an acceptable Christian emotion. So to express anger was an indication that you really weren't a Jesus follower or as close as you should be. So that didn't help in terms of learning how to have tough conversations, how to express anger when you're actually angry. And so instead we would rename it. I'm not angry, I'm just a little frustrated. I don't worry, I just can't sleep at night. Or what, all these kind of things that we would come up with other names for it. So you put kind of that growing up, then being the pastor, and always trying to, and being a people pleaser. All that combination was pretty unhealthy inside me. And I also came to the conclusion if I had gotten angry, if I expressed, I said something, nobody at that meeting was going to listen anyway.
Sure.
It wasn't really going to do any good. But it was a few days later when one of my close friends that we had a really close relationship, he was the one that finally convinced us to go to lunch with him.
Okay.
And so this happened on a Monday night. By Thursday, Mommy finally said, okay, I'll go to lunch with him. And it was a long lunch. And he spent almost the entire time trying to help me understand that I was really angry.
Okay. Well, that's step one, right?
Yeah. And I'm going, well, no, I wonder if anybody really understood what was going on there. And, all these things are going on, but was that really the truth? What was happening here? And I kept thinking that that's really what was going on. And he just kept pounding at it that I was angry. I'm going, no, not really. So it took a while. And fast forward a few weeks, and I guess my anger turned inward.
Okay.
That's a fairly good description, I'm learning, of depression. And so I part of me what was going on is like, man, if they're that angry with me over those things, what if I did something really bad? And what would they do with that?
Right.
So it was kind of like, oh my goodness. And I knew that I had sacrificed my family in order to serve the people in the church, and it still wasn't enough. They're still mad at me. So after a while, it was like, maybe I am a horrible pastor. And I actually got to the point that maybe everyone, my family included, would be better off if I wasn't here. And so I actually, to my shock and amazement, I'd never had a thought like that before in my life, but I actually got to the point where I thought about just ending it all.
Do you feel like that was the lowest, kind of the start of the burnout and,
Yeah, that was all going in there. That was just, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. And I was so wounded at that point, I didn't even think about going for help, much less try to figure out where to go for help.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of Journey to Healing and Forgiveness with our guest, John Smith. Please tune in on Wednesday for part 2 and on Friday for part 3.